Thank you very much, Harald, for your kind introduction. We will now focus on the safety of these vaccines. Next slide, please. In the next few minutes, I will take you through how we intend to monitor the safety of these vaccines, and I will address, just like Harold, several of the or all of the questions that you see here, like why do we need to monitor? How do we do that? How can I report an ADR? How will we know if the side effects are caused by the vaccine? And where can I find more information? Next slide, please. This is a slide to put a little bit into context. Safety is, of course, the focus of my presentation, and then mainly the post-approval safety. However, like Harold also already highlighted in his presentation, safety is being monitored from the beginning of the development of the product. As you can see on the left part of the slide, that is showing everything that's already been done pre-approval. So the quality is checked, non-clinical studies are assessed, the clinical trials are assessed, and that has led to the decision that the benefits outweigh the risks. Now we are going to focus on real life use of the products, and that's being done with the post-approval safety monitoring. The EMA's safety committee, the PRAC, and also all the national competent authorities are very well aware of their responsibility to EU citizens to collect and analyze every piece of information on the safety of these COVID-19 vaccines so that we can ensure that the benefits keep outweighing the risks. And how we do that, we will see in the next few slides. So please to the next slide. Why do we need to monitor the safety of medicines after the approval? We have seen that the data from the trials, they are very large, but we also know that all medicines, including these vaccines, have benefits and have risks. At the time of the approval, we have the data from the clinical trials and from quality and preclinical studies, but the data from the clinical trials will not be able to assess the full picture because after approval, the medicines will be used in real conditions and by a far larger population. So post-marketing safety monitoring is important to identify any new or any changing risks as quickly as possible and take the appropriate action. Next slide, please. Who does the monitoring of the safety in the European Union? We have a very robust pharmacovigilance system available in Europe. It's a rather busy slide, but on the right hand, you can see that there are very clear responsibilities for regulatory authorities, marketing authorization holders, and that patients and healthcare professionals, and I should say here not patients, but people who will be vaccinated, play a key role in the pharmacovigilance monitoring. On the left side of the slide, you can see the pharmacovigilance cycle that consists of collecting of data, analyzing those data, make a decision on the data, communicate the decision if needed, and again, monitor. So that's an ongoing cycle which allows us to identify promptly any new or any changing in risks of the vaccines. Next slide, please. The requirements for the COVID-19 vaccines are very strict and rigorous as for all medicines in the European Union. So we have, of course, safety requirements, and the pharmaceutical legislation only allows products on the market if the benefits outweigh the risks. In this situation, we have a very special context because the vaccines will be given to healthy people, many of them, a large population, in a very short period of time. And therefore, it's very important that we can respond very quickly. And additional resources have therefore also been mobilized to closely monitor the safety and assess any new information as soon as it becomes available. The safety requirements for the marketing authorization holders have also been strengthened, and instead of providing in line with the regular legislation, every 6 months the safety data, they now need to submit those safety data every month to the regulatory authorities. The safety vaccines in real life are studied by several tools. And on the next slide, I will go a bit more into detail. If we can go to the next slide. Yes, thank you. So what we will do is we will have a very intensive analysis of all reports of suspected side effects reported from people who have received the vaccine and from the healthcare professionals. These reports will be collected in the European database, the Eurovigilance database, and will be continuously monitored, checked, and analyzed. In addition to that, the marketing authorization holders have to conduct post-authorization safety studies as required by the regulators. We also will have studies initiated and coordinated by the regulators. And we have a very intense international collaboration on the COVID-19 vaccine monitoring. Next slide, please. The studies that we have a very robust pharmacovigilance system available in Europe, but we have even added to that safety surveillance by setting up a European infrastructure for specifically this vaccine monitoring. This infrastructure has gathered information on key adverse events so that we know the background information on these key adverse events. It has established an EU network of sources where we can find data, and it has developed template protocols for vaccine coverage, effectiveness, and safety studies. In addition to the spontaneous reporting system, we have additional proactive monitoring in place where we will collect primary data, so data immediately specifically for this purpose, using an app-based application, and that will further provide information on the incidence of adverse events. And this will be complemented by use of data that are already available in order to do rapid signal assessment. And we will have additional EMA-funded safety studies that will be put in place. Next slide, please. So how can you report safety effects? We already said that it's very important that healthcare professionals and people who have received the vaccine report everything that they suspect might be an adverse event. And you can do that to your national competent authority or to the vaccine manufacturer. These events will be collected in the Eurovigilance, the European database that collects all adverse events, not only from Europe, but from across the world. And I would like to take the opportunity to encourage everybody to report any suspected adverse event they might see or might experience. Next slide, please. Another very important point here is how do we know that the side effects are caused by the vaccine? There are established analysis techniques available that we use in order to assess whether a side effect that's being reported is likely to be caused by the vaccine. However, what is very important in this context of the mass vaccination campaigns is that many people will be getting the vaccine in a short period of time. So many of them might develop an illness or might die for other reasons. However, it occurs in close proximity to the vaccination. If these occur immediately or just after the vaccination, these may be reported as suspected adverse events to the vaccine, but it's still possible that the association was just due to chance. So we need to very carefully assess all the available reports and very carefully go through them in order to assess whether it's caused by the vaccine or not. And if the analysis concludes that the side effect is caused by the vaccine, we will need to take action. And for example, one of the actions is that we include it in the package leaflet. For example, what I would like to highlight here is a very small number of severe allergic reactions, anaphylaxis, was reported by countries that started the vaccination campaign a bit earlier than in Europe, and that enabled us to review all the cases reported very carefully, and that allowed us to provide information in the product information that is helpful for healthcare professionals to deal with this and to inform patients better, or people who get the vaccine. Next slide, please. Of course, it's important that you have as much information as possible, and probably your national health authorities will also have a lot of information available, but you can always find the information regarding the vaccines on the EMA website. And I show here the Comirnaty. On the next slide, the Moderna will be shown, and here you can see in your own language all the recommendations for healthcare professionals and for patients, the information on studies that are done, and if there is any information that needs to be communicated urgently because there has been a new side effect, for example, you can always go to these sites of the EMA and find the information regarding the safety and the efficacy of these vaccines. So that brings me to the next slide, where I will try to summarize. I think Harold's and my presentation have shown that vaccines are a key pillar of public health and have been proven to prevent serious illnesses and serious diseases. However, no medicine and no vaccine is 100% safe. What we know about the vaccines now is that the side effects are usually mild and don't last too long. However, there is still a lot we need to further evaluate. But what we also have to keep in mind is that even if there are rare, serious adverse events, these must be balanced against the prevention of severe or even fatal diseases, like, for example, the COVID-19. We have a very strong European pharmacovigilance surveillance system in place, and safety will not be compromised. We are able to collect and act on all new information that becomes available. We have taken unprecedented steps in order to monitor safety in practice, to be transparent, and to take action as soon as possible. Like also highlighted by Harold, despite the fact that we are now getting to be vaccinated, it remains very important to also adhere to the non-pharmacological measures that we have available, and that is the use of a face mask, the hand hygiene, and the physical distance. It remains very important to take that into account. COVID-19 vaccine safety relies very much on your support, and the safety monitoring can only be stronger with your participation. So once again, a call to please report any suspected side effects.